Queens are first at 10, and good evening to you. I'm Ernie Anastas.
I'm Derry Alexander. Well, only days after 9/11, the anniversary, and several residences in Queens are raided by a terrorism task force.
Fox 5's Charles Leave is live in Flushing with what we are learning tonight. Charles.
Ernie and Derry, the apartment building behind me, one of several in Flushing, raided by the FBI early this morning. Investigators believe they may have broken up a terrorist plot before it really ever got off the ground. Sources say they had been watching a suspected member of al-Qaeda for several days, but when he met with a group of men here in Flushing late last night, the FBI got an emergency search warrant and moved in. No answer at an apartment raided by federal agents. The door likely knocked down. A new one, the only silver door in the building, now in place, and bloodstains on the wall. This man lives down the hall.
I am feeling very bad, and it is very good whatever they find them.
Earlier, police lead a man out of the Queens apartment building and question him after FBI agents and police with the Joint Terrorism Task Force raid several apartments in multiple buildings in Flushing early Monday morning. Sources say the raids launched after a suspected member of al-Qaeda came to New York City over the weekend and was visiting with someone at their Flushing apartment. Long Island Congressman Peter King talking to Fox 5 from Washington after getting a classified briefing by the FBI.
It's been an accumulation of evidence that has been building up, indicating that it could be al-Qaeda.
Investigators won't confirm if there have been any arrests, though cameras captured a man taken away in handcuffs. Witnesses say agents seized evidence.
Like in the 5 o'clock in the morning, I just woke up for the fasting because, Muslims fasting in this month. And I saw the helicopter in the morning and the FBI, some guys, they were coming out of the building carrying some packages, some bags.
Residents in the building and nearby neighborhood unnerved to hear what happened.
It's scary. It's kind of, it's terrible. Like, people live here. I have a 2-year-old brother. I have a 7-year-old sister. It's scary.
First, there was nothing imminent. Second, there was nothing related to President Obama's visit.
Because much of the ongoing investigation is still classified, most of the details are unclear tonight. But investigators do say that no bomb-making material was found in the raids. We hope to learn more about this investigation tomorrow. And for the very latest, you can tune into Good Day New York starting at 4:55 a.m. But for now, that's the latest live in Flushing tonight. Ernie, back to you.
Well, just a few days after 9/11, a series of terror raids were carried out in Queens. News 12 has now learned that the individuals being investigated are believed to have strong terrorist links. Jill Wagner joining us now with more on this developing story. Jill.
Well, Judy, authorities say they haven't found any weapons that would indicate a terrorist attack is imminent, but they call the threat very real, and it's what prompted those early morning raids in Queens.
There were federal agents, some with weapons, going through, apparently sometimes breaking through locks to get to these apartments.
Along here on the street, I noticed that there were about 20 double-parked SUVs and miscellaneous other vehicles, and it certainly roused my curiosity.
We now know FBI agents and police raided 3 Queens apartments all before dawn this morning, part of an ongoing terrorism investigation of a man suspected to have ties to al-Qaeda. Congressman Peter King was briefed by federal law enforcement officials.
Certainly appears to be a very real threat. That's why the court granted the search warrant. That's why the FBI and the NYPD felt so strongly.
And local elected officials say one of the buildings that was raided early this morning is this one right here on Parsons Boulevard in Queens, and they say it's home to an Afghani family.
According to the neighbors, they say they kept to themselves. They really didn't know too much about this family.
Down the street, local officials say police targeted another home.
There was a family of 4 from Bosnia, a mother, a father, and 2 adult children. They were detained. Their possessions were taken by the authorities.
Federal and city law enforcement officials are tight-lipped tonight, and no arrests have been announced.
No need for panic. I can assure you that the FBI and the NYPD are monitoring this very carefully, and they certainly are being very aggressive about it. But we live in a dangerous world, and we have to realize that the New York, Long Island area is the #1 terrorist target in the world.
And Senator Charles Schumer, who was also briefed by the FBI, says there's, quote, nothing imminent about to happen. He describes the raids as preventative. Colleen?
Okay. Well, the FBI and Homeland Security, according to the Associated Press, are today warning police departments across the country to watch out for materials that could be used to make explosives. This warning comes after a raid in New York City yesterday on 3 different apartment buildings. Armed members of the Joint Terrorism Task Force raided 3 apartments in Flushing, Queens to try to break up potentially a terror cell. What were they doing there? Those are the questions being asked today. Federal agents did brief some key lawmakers on the terror threat. Peter King is one of those key lawmakers, a Republican congressman from New York, the ranking member of the Homeland Security Committee, also serves on the Intelligence Committee. Congressman, good to see you this morning.
Good to be with you, Jane.
The story goes, and correct me if I'm wrong, that there was a suspected terrorist, a guy who may have ties to al-Qaeda, who is of Afghan descent, who was in New York City, in Queens, at these apartments over the weekend, and after he left the city is when the feds went in. Is that right?
Jane, there's a lot of information on the public record. What I can tell you is that there was an ongoing investigation that the Joint Terrorism Task Force, primarily the FBI and the NYPD, felt very strongly that action had to be taken. On Sunday and Monday, they carried out what had to be done, and it's still an ongoing investigation. But again, they would not have acted the way they did if they did not think it was serious. And I do know that the FBI, Homeland Security, all of the agencies, especially the NYPD, are still taking this very seriously. But because it's ongoing, I think it would be inappropriate to say exactly who's where. But I am confident they did the right thing yesterday. I'm also very confident that they are on top of the situation right now.
Can you at least, Congressman King, confirm that it's somebody who has been under surveillance and they know where he is now?
My understanding is the person was under surveillance, and that was one of the reasons why the raids were carried out. But I'm not going to comment on where the person is now. I only comment on what happened up to the time of the raid, and I do know that at that time, based on a totality of information they had, the Joint Terrorism Task Force thought it was important to go ahead to get search warrants to carry out the raids.
In light of what's being reported that the feds are asking local departments around the country to look for potential weapons and to look for people who may have burns, people who may have been putting together weapons, can you tell me if any weapons were found yesterday?
No, I cannot comment on what was taken. Everything that was taken is being analyzed, is being looked at. And again, I can't emphasize enough as part of an ongoing investigation. I can comment on what led up to the raid. But as far as what was done yesterday, that is ongoing, and I wouldn't comment on that.
I wanted to ask you, too, because our Catherine Herridge, our national correspondent, has been hearing from some of her sources in law enforcement that they're furious about the fact that any of this leaked out, saying, in fact, what you're saying, that this investigation is ongoing, saying they're pouring gas on a raging fire, these leaks are.
Well, again, I do know on New York television last night there was actual footage given out showing the FBI and the NYPD carrying out the raids. I assume that came from law enforcement itself. I did see a person who was taken into custody by the FBI being interviewed on television last night. So it's hard to have it both ways. The fact is that I know that early in the day there was a lot of information already out there, and as far as I knew, that was before any briefings were given at all. I know actually almost everything I knew and heard about the FBI raids yesterday afternoon, I knew long before I got the briefing from the FBI.
Congressman Peter King, who is on the Hill for us. Congressman, thank you.
Jane, thank you.